Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
All right, so hockey tonight, tomorrow, back home. What's been the state of play so far, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think they're happy with where they're at, 3-1 through the first 4 games, and now after playing 4 games in 7 days to open the season, 11 days between games, so you have all that information and kind of digest what you learned about a team that, as we talked about last time, I think, had so many different faces and newcomers. You're trying to put puzzle pieces together with a full off season this year. So I think they're happy with where they're at. Obviously, a lot to improve on, as any coach would say this time of year. The one thing, again, just was finding that offensive identity. Struggled in game 1, got a better performance in game 2. But the freshmen have really played well, Steve, especially starting with Danny Geniev, who's their leading scorer so far. Ryan Kerwin's been good, Simon Mack on the back end. You really could go top to bottom through all 5 freshmen they have. And that's really encouraging to see. And now you just want to keep building on what you established so far, tweaking, building, and improving as you go into the series.
All right, so now you get to the power play unit. Guy had told me on the coach's show that he still intended to open the season with 3 power play units, and then we'll see how it played out from there. So how's that played out?
Yeah, they've used 3 so far, and again, they're still trying to find the right fit and the right mix. What's hurt them is Ben Copeland, because of an NCAA eligibility issue, missed the first series. Clayton Phillips missed the last series with Canisius because of an injury. So those are 2 guys who will factor onto the power play that you haven't had in your lineup for a chunk of the first 4 games. So I think they're still trying to find the right fit, but the power plays look good. They've generated a lot of shots, have a power play goal in each of their 3 wins. And I think you're seeing the defense from the blue line. And for the most part, they've gone 1D. There's a couple of units that have 2D. But Danny Geniev, who I mentioned before as a freshman, has got such a quick trigger. And just think of him the same way that Dennis Smirnoff was employed, as that shot that's going to move up and down the wing, just keep getting up and down that left wing and look for a spot to hunt and shoot. And that's how they've employed him so far. And they use Christian Sarlo with unit he's with as a body in front of the net. So I think they have a lot of really good pieces, and the way their defense can shoot and move the puck. It's not about necessarily having the hardest slap shot, right? It's your vision, your instincts, quick puck movement. With Clayton Phillips, Simon Mack, Paul DeNaples, they have a couple of key pieces that can work really well there.
Yeah, which helps. I mean, what has DeNaples' leadership meant to this point?
Yeah, it's been really good. I think especially considering how many guys are going through this for the first time, right? It's not just the freshmen, it's the sophomores as well, who didn't have that opportunity to play in Pagula last year, didn't have the off season. And I think with it being, as I think you've talked about with Guy, and I think you and I have talked about too, there's somewhat of a passing of the torch from now you're 2 years removed from that Big Ten championship team. A lot of the key pieces to that team have moved on. Alex Limoges and Arna Talvidia moving on after last season. There's a sense of freshness about it, and I think Paul's leadership's been excellent. One of the focuses throughout the off season was establishing a better culture and reestablishing that culture that's made them so successful here in the first decade of Penn State hockey, and DeNaples and his leadership on and off the ice. Because when you're doing that, look, most of that comes away from the rink when the coaches aren't there, establishing that culture and forming a synergy and a bond amongst your teammates. I think that's where a leader like DeNaples really comes in.
Nobody knows among broadcasters the effect of fans than you do, because you're the guy that's on the field for us for football. So you're down there feeling it all the time on the field, regardless of where we are. What's it been like in the rink?
Yeah, it's been really good so far. And talking to some of the players, they've fed off of it too. It was a bizarre year last year, but to have the fans back, it adds a little jump to your step out there on the ice. The players have said that, and there's a buzz again in the building. Not only can it lift you up when you're down, when things are going your way, I think throughout the years, the thing I've noticed it impacts the most at Pagula is the snowball effect, right? If you get one, here comes 2, here comes 3, all of a sudden the momentum's behind you. the goalie with his back to that roar zone and 1,000 students pounding on the glass, just the impact it can make and tilt the game. I know some people discuss momentum and say it's not really a real thing in sports. Well, it certainly is a real thing in hockey. I think it is in all sports. And in that building with the fans, that's where that momentum comes into play. And maybe it's just perception, but they awfully look like they're skating faster when the fans are there going crazy.
All right. So how do you view these two matchups here?
Yeah, Niagara, just like Penn State, hasn't played in a week and a half, 2 weeks. They opened with North Dakota, and that's a challenging opening 2 games on the road, taking on North Dakota, who Penn State will play next, coincidentally, in Nashville next weekend. Team with a veteran head coach who's well-respected, did not have a lot of success last year, but like a lot of teams across the country, have a lot of transfers. So I think you're trying to still get a read on what they are. It's hard to get a read on where they are this year. But because of their goaltending, they're going to have an opportunity to stay in games. The goalie from last year that's returning, Chad Veltri, posted some pretty good numbers, and then they brought in the NAHL goaltender of the year from a year ago, Jake Seibel. So anytime you can get solid goaltending, I think you have a chance to stay in some games. But I think it's still really young in the season to tell where they're going to be, but Niagara traditionally has played Penn State really competitively, including last time they were here at Pagula 2 years ago, 3-2 game and a 2-0 game. So they've played Penn State competitively, even though they haven't beaten Penn State.
All right, so now let's get the thoughts on this weekend once we get to the football side of it. What's your thoughts going in on this weekend?
Yeah, I think obviously it starts with the quarterback position, as everyone's talked about all week long and for 2 weeks now. What that's going to look like when Penn State takes the field on Saturday. I think once you remove yourself from that discussion, looking forward to seeing how they bounce back. We've talked all year long about the leadership on the football team, the energy and kind of that environment down on the sideline, and the way the guys rally for one another no matter what that circumstance is. Well, they faced adversity in some individual games, but now they're facing adversity, a little bit more big picture from a season. So I want to see how they respond, bounce back, how they use that bye week. That was a physical football game at Iowa. Get a little bit healthier and get back out there on the field because all their goals are still in front of them this season. So I think that's the biggest thing. How did you come out of that bye week? Hopefully a lot healthier than you went into that bye week. And then just seeing how they respond to some adversity after a loss for the first time this year.
All right, Brian, busy. Tonight hockey, tomorrow hockey, Saturday football. So there you go.
Can't wait.
Sounds great.
It wasn't the same without you last week.
Same here, my friend.
All right, take care, Steve.